what a horrible ending.
In the history of this fight against doping, where does the nabbing of Landis rank? How big is it?
Well, it's big in the sense that, like Ben Johnson, it's the #1 event in cycling. That's the event. If there's a blue ribbon event in cycling, it's the Tour de France.
I think we need more whistleblowing, and we can...
If cycling has a wheel of corruption, then Dick Pound is the stick in the spokes. He's the Canadian at the head of the World Anti-Doping Agency, an organization actually born out of a cycling scandal in the late 1990s. On this day, he shares his tough, often blunt message with law students. On the day he heard Landis had tested positive, Pound found himself no less at a loss for words.
He said, oh, no. And then you say, as I look back to stage 17, it was almost too good to be true, and if it's too good to be true, sometimes it's too good to be true. And no, it was to make up the kind of distance he did on one stage was just...
Another catastrophe for Landis. The official word was positive for a high level of testosterone, later revealed to be synthetic, from a test right after that striking victory in stage 17. The Federation's president confirmed it.
We will explain to the world why this is not a doping case and a natural occurrence.
At the time, Landis offered several clumsy explanations that he now admits made things worse.
I absolutely would assume that I was guilty. What more? They didn't. You don't need to be provided evidence. If the president of the UCI is saying I'm guilty, he seems like a respectable, guy who wouldn't have a reason to say that unless it was true.
Were you doping in the Tour de France?
No.
So, another athlete caught, another athlete makes a denial. Sound familiar? Well, when we return, why this is no ordinary sports scandal. Because even as Lance Armstrong's heir proclaims his innocence to the world, another story is emerging. One that threatens to cast an even darker shadow over professional cycling and raises questions about the sport's biggest star, the 7-time winner of the Tour de France, Lance Armstrong himself. When Frankie Andreu retired from competition,
that's foul!
He probably imagined he was done with the sports cycle of denial. Imagined that the weight of what he knew about drugs in the sport would no longer be a burden. Not a chance. In fact, when one secret in particular came up again, Frankie and Betsy Andreu had barely spoken about it in almost 10 years. Not until they were subpoenaed to answer questions under oath. Questions about a visit to a sick friend in 1996. That friend was Lance Armstrong, recovering in hospital from cancer treatment. It was 3 years before he won his first Tour de France. This is the first time they've told what happened on television.
And so the doctor asked him a couple of banal questions, and then, boom, have you ever taken any performance-enhancing drugs? To which Lance replied, yes, and almost nonchalantly, he replied, growth hormone, steroids, testosterone, EPO, cortisone. And my eyes popped out of my head, and Frankie said, I think we should leave, and we left the room.
Right after the question was out there was, the steroids, the EPO, cortisone, growth hormone, and stuff. And then, again, we left. I was like, all right, we got to get out of here, because I couldn't believe what I heard. And we left the room immediately, so I don't know what happened after that. And then I never talked about it for 10 years.
The Andreu's sworn testimony was part of a mountain of material, exhibits, documents, videotaped depositions, all compiled in connection with a legal scuffle between Armstrong and a company he said owed him a $5 million bonus for winning the Tour in 2004. The lawsuit went to arbitration and was eventually settled, but the confidential files were leaked.
I was called all sorts of names. Rat, traitor, like a loser, and I was jealous of Lance, and I couldn't be as good as he was, and just, you know, I mean, it runs the gauntlet, all sorts of stuff. I had my back against the wall, and I was put into a hard situation where, you know, I didn't want to talk about any of this stuff, and I never would have if this case never came around. But, yeah, so in my eyes, that was like the beginning of a big, big, long mess.
You know, I've always kept the same approach. If the question is asked, if the accusation is there, you go on record and you answer the question. Right. And you answer it honestly and you answer it straight up. And I've always done that. And I go to bed at night and sleep like a baby. So.
Armstrong has long brushed off the rumors and denied the allegations of drug use. But the questions have persisted. Questions that date back to his early career as a cyclist, as well as after he became the much-lauded cancer survivor who won the Tour over and over again. CBC News has seen the files connected to the lawsuit. They are filled with hearsay and circumstantial evidence, and no one testified to seeing Armstrong take banned drugs. But significantly, many statements are made under oath. They paint a troubling picture of pro cycling, a secretive world where pills and syringes are often a part of the culture. And they raise questions about Armstrong himself. One witness, former teammate Stephen Swart, testified about a discussion he had with Armstrong during a training ride in 1995.
What did you conclude about Mr. Armstrong and EPO at the end of that ride?
That for us to be competitive at the Tour that year, that we needed to start a medical program of EPO.
What did Mr. Armstrong say?
Well, basically, this is why he got into the sport. But, you know, you have to do what you have to do.
Swart himself has confessed that during that period of his career, he was taking EPO.
You swear that your testimony will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God?
Yes.
Another witness, former Tour champion Greg LeMond, recalled a telephone call he received from Armstrong in 2001. LeMond had been publicly critical of Armstrong's association with a man named Michele Ferrari, a doctor tied to drug use.
It started off as, you know, hey, Greg, I thought we were friends. And I said, yeah, well, I don't know, are we? I thought we were friends. And he's then asked, why would you say something like that? And I just said, well, I've always been outspoken about Ferrari, and it's doctors like that who are ruining the sport and killing riders.
And did Mr. Armstrong respond?
Basically said, oh, come on. You're telling me you never did EPO. Everybody does EPO.
That's absolutely not true. Why?
I'm sorry, go ahead.
Why would I call somebody to criticize them for saying I dope and then say we all dope? That's ridiculous.
In his sworn testimony, Armstrong repeatedly denied every allegation, every insinuation that he ever took performance-enhancing drugs.
Was there a discussion about doping in any way with Mr. Swart?
The only aspect that is true is that he was on the team. Beyond that, not true.
And Armstrong denied that the hospital room conversation the Andreos describe ever took place.
Did any medical person ask you while you were at the Indiana University Hospital whether you had ever used any sort of performance-enhancing drugs or substances?
No, absolutely not.
There's more and more stuff here. You know, why would Frankie Andreu lie under oath? What's in it for him? You know?
The question of whether Armstrong was clean remains unanswered for Dick Pound. That skepticism, often expressed in the international media, has made him one of the few willing to go toe-to-toe with the American star.
I have never accused him of doping. I certainly have not backed off from the possibility that he might have. And his normal treatment has been to be very aggressive in pursuing the protection of the brand, and anything that casts any doubt on that should be silenced.